When the world has got you down.
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here's your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and Cassie Cruz.
All you gotta do is sing a song.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Love Conquers Alls. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Cassie Cruz.
We have a great guest.
We do. We have a beautiful guest today, and she is a caregiver. Her name is Lee Eom, and she is a mother of three, Taylor, Lauren, and William. Hi, you three. And she's a realtor in Valencia, California. She's a middle child, and she has an older brother named Steve and a younger brother named Tony. And they lost their father over 2 years ago to Alzheimer's. And I know that she wants to find a cure just like all of us do, but the most important thing that we're doing right now is starting the conversation, and she's willing to share her story to get the most awareness out there for all the people who are starting to see symptoms and for their families. So Sunny, welcome.
Welcome, Sunny.
Hi.
This is a great conversation to have and help people and their family members, getting diagnosed.
Thank you for having me on to share this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when my mom was first diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was seeing the symptoms and everyone thought I was crazy. So how and what your experience was will help.
We really appreciate it. We know that it takes courage, and this is what courage looks like, to be able to share that, because I'm sure the experience is painful in many ways, and I'm sure there was some joy, but still it's painful.
Yeah, it's still raw after two years, but that's 2 years past of losing my dad, but that it's like a long process.
When was your father diagnosed?
He was diagnosed when he was 65.
Oh, that's young.
Yes, that is very young.
And how old was he when he passed?
He was he just turned 80.
So, okay,
yeah.
Wait
so
a second.
was about
really literally 15 years?
15 years.
Oh, my gosh. So, Sunny, I always say it's the longest disease.
It's
It's the longest walk out the door. Oh, that's hard. That is hard.
And it's harder because in the beginning, you don't know that, because aside from when I was younger, my grandma, we think she had it, but we weren't like living with them or seeing her every day. But with my dad, it was like, why is he forgetting everything? And, those questions came up, and we didn't know until we believe he got it at 65 because that's when the symptoms were coming. But he was technically really diagnosed by a doctor like 3 years after. So he was like 68 when the doctor kind of told us it's dementia in the beginning.
Right. And can you talk about up those 3 years before he was diagnosed?
Exactly. What
happened there? Because I remember, for me, it was like, I would say, something's wrong with mom. And my elder brother was like, oh, no, stop it. What are you talking about? She's fine. And, people make you feel like you are going crazy or you're being too judgmental. What did you experience?
So my mom was the one who probably noticed it because she was living with them. And then she kind of hid it because we're Korean. So I'm Korean and then so I think it's in our tradition, it's kind of like they're embarrassed. Our parents' generations they're kind of embarrassed about it.
Interesting.
Embarrassed in what way? Like that nothing's wrong, like everything's good.
Yeah,
like
they don't want.
On.
Yeah, that they have to have the face on, like, oh, he doesn't have dementia, and
or
so my mom,
okay.
Yeah, everything's okay. So my mom hid it from us about a year, and she would always complain he forgets stuff, and they used to own a store, and he would leave all the merchandise. Literally, he would spend $1,000 on a merchandise and leave it. He would just take a few items out and leave the rest in the parking lot because he forgot that it was there.
Oh,
so my mom and dad, like, they would fight every day because of like him being forgetful, losing his keys. And then when we noticed, it was he was always they're always suspicious in the beginning, like they think like it's kind of funny when I think about it. He would accuse my mom like she was cheating on him because he watched this Korean soap opera
Yeah.
with having an affair, and so he related that to my mom. So like he would like think he was in that scenario, or like he would do some weird things like that. That's really out of my dad's character.
Right. Well, because this paranoia, I think,
Yeah, that's it. Paranoia.
Yeah,
So
I think
is it because of the paranoia that happens? Is because like they forgot something? They're like, now it's like, wait a second, somebody stole something from me. Somebody took something from me, which is actually the memory is gone, and that is what was being taken. It's like, wait a second, this isn't right. Something's wrong. Something's happening.
Yes. So my parents used to live with my older brother Steve. And then when my mom started to see these symptoms, she decided to move out to a senior apartment because they got to that age where they could move into a senior apartment, because my dad started getting paranoid that my sister-in-law was stealing money from him. So those are the symptoms: being paranoid, suspicious, while they're misplacing things. Then we're like, okay, something's wrong with my dad,
right.
We're like,
What did
And
your
were you
mom
able-
think when you thought that? What did you discuss with your mom?
At first we would get mad at my mom, thinking, why are you always accusing dad of that? Okay. And then we got mad at our dad. We had no idea that he was going through all these symptoms because we weren't aware of it.
Exactly. And plus he was young.
Yes. And we're like thinking, he looks fine. He's healthy, because my dad used to hike every day, so he's very healthy.
Yeah.
So when you have your brain going, but your body and your heart and everything's healthy, that disease can go longer.
Yes.
And that disease is very deceptive, because
it is.
We even that don't have Alzheimer's forget stuff, or feel paranoid, or that somebody might have betrayed us, because it's a gut feeling that we have, or something that's going on, that we could be misunderstanding the situation as well. So it's very deceptive.
The difference between someone who doesn't have a cognitive disability and someone who does is that there's no logic to it, or there's no talking them out of it.
No.
And so
they're so more stubborn too.
Right.
What do you mean by that? Like they just dig in more?
Yes.
No, yes, they do, and then they think you're crazy.
Exactly. Like like in my movie, like my mom, there's a scene where she's looking at a table in her caregiver's house that she gave her, and she forgot she gave it to her. So it's her old dining room table, and she says, I wish I could have afforded something as beautiful as this. And she says, you gave this to me. She goes, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they think you're like you're
cuckoo.
They think you're crazy.
Yeah. So those are great signals to people when you're first, because we don't know if you don't know Alzheimer's, like you said, you just thought your mom was being extra hard on your dad.
Yes. And then once I think when we really had to take him to the geriatric diagnosis, they were with Kaiser. So when it hit me in the face, because I went to that testing with my dad because I was translating. When the doctor asked him about the date, like he goes, "What's today's date?" He had no idea. And when I was sitting in that the testing, it hit me. I would always ask my dad. I go, "Hey, Dad, what time is it? What's today's date?" He goes, "Oh, I'll," and then he would like he would just ignore the question, or he never answered me. So I just didn't think much about it. And when the doctor and they give you like 3 words in the beginning, like cat, dog, a house, and then they'll retest him like 10 minutes later, he wouldn't remember.
Right.
And that's when I got like the chills. I'm going, oh my God, my dad has dementia. And then they asked him to draw a clock, and he didn't know what a clock was.
And how was that for you? My goodness.
Exactly. So I'm thinking that disease, while my mom was complaining like 2-3 years, for 3 years, it was progressing, and we were so ignorant, or we were so uneducated about it, unaware of that those were the symptoms, and that he suffered alone, and we were getting angry at him. Those are the things if I was to ever regret, is those 3 years that we didn't catch on, and we weren't expecting. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. And
You were
Yeah.
assuming there was nothing wrong, and so
Nothing wrong with my dad.
you were treating him as such. And
Yeah, we're just going, why is he acting like, why is he doing that,
It's
Mm.
that's so important, because I feel like everybody needs to be aware of it and
aware of it.
and the more and more it's an epidemic in this world now. So
Uh-huh.
we have to be more cognizant of this issue and of the sensitivity of the first signals or the first
Signals
signs.
and symptoms.
Once you guys did get that diagnosis,
Yes.
what changed then, and could you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So my mom and my dad decided to move out because my mom just didn't want to become a burden to my brother's family. So she was the sole caregiver for about 2 years, until like when it's starting to progress more. My dad was considered a wanderer dementia.
Okay.
There's like certain dementias, I guess. My dad was a wanderer. He would always leave the house. He has to leave the house. And time-wise, he never knows what time it is. So he thought he's going to work at 2, 3 in the morning. He thought it was morning, like a work day for him, and he had to go to work. So my mom would literally sleep in front of the door so he wouldn't wander outside the door.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
because
Wow.
they were living in the senior apartment.
Yeah.
And there are times when when she wanted to go to the restroom. I didn't even know how extreme it was because she was living with him. And then finally one weekend I was staying there, and I firsthand witnessed it. And I'm going, how is my mom doing this? Because she's at that age where she could, the caregiver gets sick first.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep. Physically sick.
It's it's a huge deal. We're just going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back.
This is Don Priest, beloved producer of Love Conquers Alls. Hey, if you've been thinking about starting your own podcast, stop thinking and do it. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your first recording. Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So join Love Conquers Alls and over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. And now, back to Love Conquers Alls.
You're listening to Love Conquers Alls, and we are speaking with Sunny Lee Eom.
And Sunny was telling us about her mom just sleeping at the door so her dad would not wander out, and they were living in their own apartment. Your mom decided, and this is about being proud or didn't want to be a burden, right? Didn't want to be a burden on anybody. But then she's doing in the caregiving all by herself.
Yes, so it was just wear and tear on my mom. And then she was, she has diabetes herself, and she's up there too. And so she would never get a full sleep, like, not because my dad was always up. 1 or 2 in the morning, he has to be up, taking a shower, and then going, wanting to go to work. There are a few times where he was able to sneak out. He wandered off where he was gone for the whole weekend. He was gone Friday to Sunday.
Oh my God. Oh, that's very stressful. And your mom must have been out of her mind.
She was out of her mind, and she was so prideful. Not prideful, but she was just more like worried she didn't want to burden us.
Right. Is that a cultural thing, or is that
it is a somewhat cultural thing. So she would keep that in, and then finally, like when he was missing for a day, she finally called us saying, your dad's been missing. And we're like, Mom, you have to tell us this when it happens. So we have to call the police. One winter, it was one of the coldest winters in LA. And the scary thing is when the person who has dementia or Alzheimer's get lost, they don't know where they've been. You can't ask them, so where were you while you were lost?
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't
did he
know.
have a jacket on? Was he dressed appropriately?
They were never dressed No, they never eat, but they always tell you they're full.
Right.
Yeah. But one thing I have to say, the people with this disease, they always go back to that one thing they always remember.
What is that?
So my dad has this thing where he would always, because we're from the Woodland Hills area, so my dad always remember that he has to take the subway to the valley. So when we would call the police to find my dad, we always give him the heads up. Can you check all the subways? Because that's where we found him so many times.
Oh.
And then one time he was wandering and I found him on Wilshire Boulevard in Vermont. Him coming out of the subway on Wilshire in Vermont.
Oh my gosh.
And he would always say, I have to go to Wilshire, Vermont subway.
So did he work around there? That was what was familiar?
No, we don't know, but he just felt that was a place where he would take the subway and he had to go to the valley.
Wow.
But he didn't know which subway, they don't know which subway to go on. So he would just wander around in the subway area when the police would find them.
I just want to say, the one time that would happen, I'd freak out. I'm like, okay, lockdown. That's my philosophy. How many times did he get wander off like that before you had to address it in a different way?
We had to address it in a different way when 1 week he wandered off. We lost him 5 times. So we would put he would come home. Aside from that weekend he was gone, that was the one time when he was gone for the whole weekend. We thought we lost our dad. Literally lost our dad. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then the police found him at 6th and Union in LA in front of a Rite Aid. But he didn't. He just thought he was there for the day.
There are bracelets and things that we can put on people that are wanderers.
Yes, my brother's got him a bracelet where they could cut up. It's like the GPS thing, but he took them off. And then when we lost him 5 times 1 week, the police would get involved. Social services get involved, thinking we're neglecting a senior.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
They don't really think of it as the dementia doing it. They think it's us neglecting my dad.
Right.
And so they give you an option. Either you guys put him into a facility or they will do it.
Exactly.
Oh, is that what it came to?
Yeah, it came to that.
Oh, would it make sense like you do for our furry babies? We put chips in them. Maybe some kind of technology like that might be helpful.
I would think so. I would think so. Yeah, but I don't know how people feel about that.
But I feel like because, like you said, your dad was canny enough to be able to take any kind of jewelry or, mechanism off.
They don't know that it's about protecting them because they're basically I need to go to work. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
What's this thing on me?
Yeah, what the hell are you talking about? I'm fine.
And they take off everything all the time. He lost his wedding ring. He lost his watch because they just end up taking it off and they don't remember where they put it anyways.
Of course. We just have to take a quick break. You're listening to Love Conquers All, and we'll be right back after this. As COVID-19 continues to spread throughout the country, we've all had to rethink the way we do many things, including shopping for groceries. And in an effort to stay isolated, many of us are taking advantage of grocery delivery services, including me. During this quarantine here in Los Angeles, I've been using Instacart, and let me tell you, these Instacart shoppers are braving stores for those of us who are either sick or have someone vulnerable in the family, and they are nothing less than household heroes. So if you want to try Instacart for a free delivery on your first order over $35 and to start your 14-day free trial, follow the link in the show notes to Instacart so they know that we sent you, and please stay home and stay safe. And now back to Love Conquers Alls.
Back. And we are Love Conquers Alls, and we are with Lee Eom. Please continue with your story about your dad.
So finally, when the social service told our family that either we put my dad in a facility or they will, so we had no choice. And around that time, my brothers and I felt like my mom was going to end up being sicker than my dad physically. So we did put my dad into a facility. I realized when you put your parents or anybody you love into they progress with the disease faster.
Most people want to be in their own homes. And I think,
yeah,
unfortunately, you're in between a rock and a hard place because they become too difficult to manage on our own.
Yeah.
But then when you put them in a facility, they can't help but progress because it's not a normal living situation.
And they feel probably alone and isolated, and they're not in an environment that they know anymore.
Yeah.
And they feel totally out of control because they have lost that
Yes.
opportunity for that. And I mean, it's something that one of our other guests was talking about with nutrition. I'm not trying to say anything negative about any facilities, because I know a couple facilities that are wonderful and that are progressive and doing some great work. But we do want to have that kind of discussion because these are the things that are important, right?
Yeah. And right now it's like, yeah, I mean, what we're doing right now is like getting the conversation out there. So important, because it's not just a matter of getting someone that you love into a facility. It's what is the facility? How are they prepared to take care of your loved one? Do they take care of seniors with memory issues, or is it only certain kinds of dementia, or is it not dementia at all?
Because it's difficult.
It's
difficult to
difficult.
understand. We're trying to figure out, wrapping our minds around it. And also, like, what's something that happened to your mother, and you'll speak on this more, Susie, like they gave her the wrong meds, and that changed her physicality forever.
Yeah.
I'm
for
sorry.
the rest of her life now on that. And then I don't know what you experienced, but it's just the misunderstanding of what things are and what are the right things to do. And those are the conversations that we want to open up. Those are the kind of conversations we want to have to create this loving community. We talked to another guest that actually has a senior living, and that it's about building that loving community. And what does that look like?
Even our medical community and our first alert community don't always recognize Alzheimer's and dementia. So that happened to my mother. She had an episode, and they ended up putting her in a
mental hold. I think it's called the 5150, as I'm recalling.
Right. It's supposed to be 72 hours.
Yep.
It's as if, and so
so because they can harm themselves or others, and they're trying to restrain
exactly.
them.
And my mom was walking almost 5 miles a day, and when I had to put her in the assisted living, she was very agitated, and so they didn't recognize that. They put her into that facility in the hospital, and then I didn't get a call until that admitting doctor was gone for the weekend. So we had to wait for him to come back, and by the time he came back, they had my mom so drugged up on Depakote. Be careful of that drug because it makes them into zombies, and had her tethered to a chair, and she never walked again.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much.
No, I've seen like other patients at my dad's facilities that were like that. They have that glazed look, just kind of like they're not all there. I'm not blaming them. I just think it's the ratio of the caregivers and the patients. Maybe it's just too,
it's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And it's not like every patient has the same symptoms. There's like screamers, ones that sleeps all day. So when I used to go visit my dad every day, you see one patient always screaming and always yelling at the nurses that they stole things. And then there's always the ones that are wandering. My dad was the wanderer that, when I go there, I go, where's my dad? And they have to all search the facility to find my dad.
Oh, jeez. Where it was a lockdown facility, so we couldn't leave it. But
they can't leave, but he was somewhere around there.
In the kitchen or what? Where did you find him?
Wherever. And the funny thing is, he was always looking for Vermont and Wilshire, even in the facility.
Oh my gosh, really?
He would ask the nurses, where I have to go to Vermont and Wilshire to go back home.
What was at Vermont and Wilshire in his life? Did he grow up around that area?
When we first immigrated here, my dad used to, we lived in LA, but there was nothing there back then in the 70s.
Isn't that close to K-Town?
Yeah, it is K-Town.
Right.
Yeah, okay. But then there's a subway station down there too.
Yeah.
So he always has, and then they would call my dad the Vermont and Wilshire, guy.
Right. And speaking of K-Town, I want to ask you one other thing, and I think it's important because I do think there's cultural differences in the way that we address our aging loved ones. And so you are Korean. And what would you say to other people in your community? What advice could you give them?
I would say, if you see symptoms in your parents, that, best bet is, I know our Korean parents are the most stubborn people. They don't show that a lot of emotions, is to be the more assertive one and take them, even if they fight with you and disagree, that they're gonna say you're just treating me like like I'm going crazy. You have to take them to get them diagnosed.
Because then at least you know what you're dealing with.
At least you'll know, and you're not being where we feel like we don't have the patience enough for our parents. But it is a circle of life, I always say, with Alzheimer's and because eventually dementia turns into Alzheimer's, and that's what my dad passed away with, is Alzheimer's.
So when did he got diagnosed at 68 with dementia, and then when did he get fully diagnosed that it was Alzheimer's?
It was probably like 3 to 4 years they finally diagnosed it, because he literally forgot all of us in that period of time.
He forgot all of you guys.
All of us. And I keep saying it's not a funny thing. It's my dad forgot my mom first.
Really?
Yes. He always, like, when my mom would go visit my dad, he would think that was his mother-in-law.
Right. That happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it went to, and then, believe it or not, because I was the only daughter, I was lucky enough that he forgot me last, but he did end up forgetting me. And then about 2 years later, he just become literally bedridden. And that's the whole, like, it's, you see your dad or your mom or just anyone you love who's going through Alzheimer's, they actually turn into that stage where they have to be like taken care of as like baby, being fed and changed, and that bedridden part. And then they pass on with like other internal. My dad passed away with pneumonia at the end because just
their bodies start shutting down. But getting back, I just to finish up with the Korean and cultural aspect of it, and I think to what you were saying is so important. You've got this culture that's ingrained in you, and you want to be respectful to your parents, but you also have to take a new role. And how and
that's going to be uncomfortable because that's not really the pattern that you grew up with, right?
Yes. Yeah. In the beginning, my dad would be like more angry with us, saying, he's not. He goes, I'm not a child. They get angry. So when he was progressing too, as children, we should be more aware of that the symptoms they do get, and then be more assertive. And
your mom's still alive, right?
Yes, my mom's still alive.
And how's she doing and all that?
She's actually physically much better. Like, it was a mental stress for her too. And
no sleep will do that. No sleep will
do that.
Sleep deprivation, dehydration, not having enough nutrition, all those things will really deplete a person.
Yes. And then, like, they are embarrassed about it. So, my mom never in the beginning mentioned that my dad had dementia, or like he was going to go into a facility, to her friends.
Right. And I think, and you had mentioned like what, you were talking about early detection. And I think just to address that, I think what's advantageous about early detection is that there is, there's no cure, but there is medication that will keep it at bay for a while.
Yes.
And like Namenda and Aricept and whatever else is coming down the pipeline. And so if we can make their life as it is better quality, then I think that's important. And also it'll be a better quality if you and everyone around that person is aware of what's going on. Then you won't be frustrated. You'll figure out other ways to deal with that behavior. So if your father or your mother accuses you of stealing something, you could say, you know what, maybe I did misplace it. Let me look for it.
Yes. I wish we would have approached them more that way. Than we get because we are unaware of those symptoms,
right?
And we're uneducated.
So you're treating it as
it's real, rather than
like we get confrontational rather than being sympathetic, right?
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's what early detection is a good thing. And I also think that, God willing, if there is a cure that's coming, you can delay the onset of it. Then maybe they'll be around for that cure. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes. And then I'm sure our Korean generations, the ones that have been here longer, we are more open-minded. I don't know how it is in Korea because I came here at such a young age myself. So maybe the ones in Korea, they treat it differently. I think it's got to be a worldwide conversation awareness, and that just helps. I think the person who's actually going through dementia and Alzheimer's
And caregivers, because it gives us tools.
like redirecting, like, oh, well, let me see. I mean, I don't remember taking it. Let me look. And then I wonder too, if you would have replied to your dad that way, do you think that would have changed the conversation in any way? Or do you think he would have still stayed very adamant about that and angry at you?
I think he might still be angry and adamant that we did because in their mind we did.
Right. And there's just no changing that.
Yeah.
But you could say, you know what, Dad? I did, and I'm going to go look for it. I saw it over here. Let me go look for it. And by the time you do that, they forget.
So you could play that role. Yeah, saying, Dad, I borrowed it. I'm sorry. Let me go find it. And maybe instead of saying, what are you talking about? That's our first response.
Of course, because we don't know. So this is great. Listen, I'm so happy that we got a chance to talk to you, and really, it's very generous of you to be so forthright, and these are not easy things to discuss anyway, and then you're discussing it with me.
All of us, and we're so very grateful.
Thank you, Sunny. I really
thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I hope anyone who's going through this find empathy. And it is a disease that there is no cure yet, but if we keep it out there, maybe we could help our loved ones go through it easier.
Sunny,
Absolutely.
From your lips to God's ears, we thank you so very much. And we, of course, thank you, all of our listeners. Remember, love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All you gotta do is sing a song. All you gotta do is sing a song.